Hey everybody, welcome back to Fanatics of Film. My name is Ben, and I've got my good cohort with me here.
Hey, it's me, Joe.
And we just saw this episode 2 of season 4, 4.2, SEO4020 Niner.
SO4E02.
So we're gonna just jump into this real quick. I actually listened to a podcast that Bob Odenkirk was on and Vince Gilligan talking about this season, just talking about it in general. And the one thing that Bob Odenkirk pointed out is that the two things that he that stood out to me was that he said specifically how he talked about how he and Kim, or at least Jimmy McGill and Kim's relationship is getting more mature now.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that's getting more mature. However, seems like some things are in jeopardy. But there are things that she defends him in here too. We're not going to get into that. But the other thing that he mentioned, which was really interesting to me, is that he prefers Jimmy McGill as opposed to Saul because he's a more complex character, and he isn't simplified into this what's the word, given up type character. He still has relevance, and he still has hope.
Yeah, it's like he as Saul, he's just he's kind of comic relief, and he's very crafty and very talented at what he does. But he's definitely more of a one-dimensional character. He's entertaining, and he's one of my favorite characters to watch on the show, on Breaking Bad. But yeah, this show definitely shows the layers, the depths of his personality, and he's much more of a relatable character as Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I think what we witnessed at the beginning of this episode was pretty much like it was Saul in that room. In this episode. By the way, this episode, a lot of really good stuff happened tonight on Better Call Saul, and I think the show's moving into darker territory. Definitely feels like, and not that it was lighthearted or like a comedy or anything, but it's definitely going into even darker territory. But it's never been as dark as Breaking Bad thus far.
Yeah, not yet.
Not thus far, because it's a different show. You know what I mean?
And it does make me also think because we do see some of what's been happening with the cartel, and maybe any of you guys in the comments, do you happen to know if at what point did it become meth? Is it just coke right now? What is Gus Fring hauling, or what is he moving? Is it just
Salamancas?
What are they? I could have sworn that it's always been meth, but I could be wrong. Am I wrong? Anyway, anybody have any thoughts on that? But
yeah, I don't partake in the meth subculture, so I don't really know how it's sold.
That's actually how Joe and I met, actually. No.
Yeah.
But the one thing that stood out to me was the introduction of Lydia.
Yeah.
Bringing her back in and seeing her, having problems with Mike's, entrance into the security analysis.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mike's not in this episode a whole lot, but what he is in is always fascinating because Jonathan Banks is just fun to watch.
Yeah, I can't help but be thinking of, because Joe and I used to watch Breaking Bad when it was first on.
Yeah,
I just remembered you actually saying you would say, I freaking hate Mike, because he, once again, it's these one-dimensional characters that seemed extremely one-dimensional. Both Mike and Saul were both extremely one-dimensional in Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
they are much deeper in this. So I mean, would you say that you don't? Because I remember you had expressed how much, like, how he was such a wall.
Yeah,
that, for instance, like Jesse Pinkman trying to even talk to Mike would just be this like annoying, up against
until
the wall.
He started taking Jesse sort of under his wing, but
no,
Gus and Mike were two of my favorite characters to just hate on
Right.
on the Breaking Bad, and it's not because I was going to say The Walking Dead. I don't know why. AMC maybe, but and it's not that I dislike those actors at all. In fact, it's the opposite. They're so good at playing people that I just
okay. So
don't wanna encounter.
so you celebrate the fact that you hated them then.
Yeah, no, I mean it was fun to watch to hate them, and I talk back to the TV a lot, and Mike is definitely one of those guys that would swear out a lot, and I was I was happy in his outcome in Breaking Bad. The same thing with especially Gus. Like wow, he went out and it was very cool. If you haven't seen it, if you have, you know what I'm talking about, but. This, not so much with... We got more of Gus's backstory during Breaking Bad, and I'm still not very sympathetic towards him.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I'm a little bit more sympathetic towards now because you knew he had a daughter that he was... and a granddaughter that he cared about, and that's what he was doing all that stuff for with Gus. And here we get to see the reasons why. Mike wasn't always the guy he is on Breaking Bad, you know, and in this he's definitely a lot more sympathetic. And you know what's going to be interesting is once this show's done, I'm going to go back and rewatch Breaking Bad. Not this season, but whenever Better Call Saul ends, however many seasons more we've got to go. At that point, I'm going to rewatch Breaking Bad and see how I feel about Mike.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And Gus and just Tuco and everybody that's in this, Saul Goodman, and just see how really well the pieces connect, you know, to see if there's any inconsistency. Not that I'm going to be critical about it. It's just, it's always interesting to watch something like this and then go back to a prequel series with the same actors just a few years before and see if they were really paying attention to what they had written before and make sure everything is cohesive. And I'm sure it will be because I'm sure these guys don't leave anything to chance. So.
Yeah. The thing that coming to mind right off is that they also discussed in this podcast, they talked about Gene, which is Saul's new name. Gene, which is the black and white Saul that we all know. What is his fate? Are we going to learn his fate? Are we going to see him kind of find out that Walter died in a lab, or whatever, are we going to see his end, or are we just going to, see him? And it'd be interesting to see what happens to Gene, to his character.
Yeah, and I think they'll probably save that towards the, right. Kind of like how Breaking Bad, the last couple of episodes, it jumps a good distance in time, with Walt hiding out in the cabin for so long and things like that. And I think this will do the same thing. I like what I really like is how the beginning of each season so far. It starts off with the flash forward in black and white of Gene working at the Cinnabon in a mall, Cottonwood Mall in Omaha, Nebraska, even though it's actually Cottonwood Mall in New Mexico, outside of Albuquerque, which is funny because we had a Cottonwood Mall here forever. So when I heard him say "take me to Cottonwood Mall," it was like, wow.
Does it kind of look like Cottonwood Mall?
I don't think. Well, not really. All malls kind of look the same to me. But what I like is that it's telling that story of what's happened to Saul since leaving Albuquerque, since Breaking Bad. Like at the beginning of this season, it shows what happened after he collapsed, which I forget. That was just him collapsing at work was just in the first episode of season 3 only.
Right.
Like they kept us waiting all this time to even see what happens next. And so I think, what's going to happen? Is somebody from Albuquerque really looking for him? Are they coming after him? Is he being paranoid? Is he safe? What's going to happen? Is he going to find out anything about Walter White and Jesse Pinkman after the events? It's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. I'm kind of hoping that the entire last season of this show takes place in the present time.
I hope so too.
Because I just think that would be an interesting way to go. You get 4 or 5 seasons of how he becomes Saul. Then you got to watch Better Call Saul to get what he does as Saul, and then you get what happens after. That'll be very fascinating.
So you got a before, during, and after. So contemporary and future.
But they may not do that. They may just save all the stuff in the present, for just the last episode. Either way, it's going to be exciting.
One thing that I'm really concerned about is Nacho, man. These last 2 episodes, I care about this guy more. He's one of the one of the few people I do not want to die. I do not want this guy to die, and I'm fearful that we will. We'll either see him die or take off somewhere, like get away somehow. But I hope he does. I hope he gets away.
I've always liked Nacho since the first episode where you first meet him with Tuco when they're going to kill the twins that are trying to pull the scam. And Saul shows up. And the reason why I like Nacho is because even though he is part of a cartel and he's a dangerous person and he's level-headed, and he doesn't like to just hurt people out of randomness. Like, he's not a sociopath.
Yeah.
I think he's the type of character who got stuck in this life, made some bad choices, and it's a very difficult life to walk away from. It's not like quitting your day job and just like, I'm gonna go work over here now.
And that's what makes him relatable, is that he's still kind of a protagonist. He's still and a good protagonist because he has a conscience.
Yeah, like he's the one who talks Tuco. Like, even though in the very first episode of the first season of Better Call Saul, we get to see Slippin' Jimmy really work his magic on Tuco to not kill those kids. But he also asks Nacho's opinion, and Nacho's like, yeah, you don't want to kill an attorney. And, like, he's very level-headed. And he's the one who really gets the truth out of Saul. Tuco's going to cut off his finger, so Saul makes up the story about I'm with the FBI because he thinks that's what Tuco wants to hear. And Nacho's like, tell me what's really going on. And he talks reason into Tuco. It seems like again, he's almost sympathetic. I don't think he's a totally remorseless character. He's got an interesting relationship with his father. Clearly he cares about his father, which is why it's put him on the path that he is in right now. And I think he is a sympathetic character, and I definitely want to see more of his character. Plus, I really like the actor. I think his performance is just really compelling.
Yeah.
So he's not one of those bad guys like Mike, where I was just like, God, Jonathan Banks, you're always such a hard ass, and you play it so well, and and now I'm like, oh, but there's backstory that's really good. Nacho's a character that I've actually liked the entire time.
Me too.
I don't think we would be friends in the real world if he was a real person, but I can at least respect that he's not the type of guy that just likes to inflict harm on people and likes to control people, and he's just doing what he does to survive.
He's a gangster, but has this family
he's got
tie.
Like a code.
He has
He's got like a moral code.
And he cares about the relationship with his father. That whole scene with his father, having him, and it did make me think. And we talked about this in a second, but it made me think: does he know if Nacho was involved in trying to poison this guy? Does he know? It made me think of that for a second, because he seemed just so disappointed in him for having that life.
Yeah. Well, and I think his dad figured he must have done something, because he did tell him that it's over, whatever that means.
Right.
And then his father's like, "But when is it over for you?"
Right. That was.
Says, "I'm working on it." Yeah. So yeah. Where's Tuco been? I for some reason I can't remember what happened. Why he hasn't been.
He was kind of funny, because he shows up in like the pilot. Wasn't he in the pilot?
Yeah,
I think he was in the very first episode of Better Call Saul. He's in it.
Well, he's in more than just the first episode.
Well, I know. What my point was, it was this crazy tease. It was like it was to real people in. It's like, okay, Tuco's there, so it's going to be
certainly, but
of course.
But they tied it together.
But
nicely,
they use it
because
exactly.
That's how we met Nacho. But
right.
I need a refresher. I'm going to have to go back and watch season 2, because that was a couple of years ago, and I haven't watched it since it aired, and then I rewatched it again, and then I haven't watched it. So.
And since you said that 2 years ago, all that business. So we know how Breaking Bad, took 5 seasons, right?
Yeah.
But it only took the place of the actual time space that it takes place is only like 2 years, right?
Well, but then it jumps ahead in the last few episodes of the final season.
Okay. Do you remember how many years?
I can't remember by how many years, but I think it pulls it into almost maybe. So the show ended in 2013, so it's probably like 2010 or 11. But
the majority of the show only takes place for about a 2-year period, right?
Yeah, I don't think each season is a single year, and this show takes place 6 years before Breaking Bad. So I would imagine at this point it's probably been maybe 1 full year.
And has that been confirmed though? It's really 6 years behind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, no. They all said it at the San Diego. The Breaking Bad. What was it? No. It was the Vanity Fair recap. They had most of the cast do a recap of the first 3 seasons, where they just told it in a funny way, and it was really entertaining. Bob Odenkirk.
Wasn't that with Conan O'Brien?
No.
Okay, so I saw the Conan O'Brien thing.
Vanity Fair.
Okay.
So, and they've got the white background, and they specifically mentioned that it's 2002.
Okay.
Because the show is 6 years before.
So right now, we're in what year?
Now it's probably 2003.
Okay.
It's probably, I think all 3 seasons probably would equate to a year at least. They've gone through a lot, so it'd have to be at least a year.
Which brings us to the coffee... the copy machine heartbeat scene.
Yeah.
That was so great.
Yeah.
What a great moment, and what a crazy disappointment at the same time. Like, I mean, I think he did it you and I were both so surprised at why he turned this thing down. And I think it's just in retrospect, I'm thinking maybe it's because he literally just enjoyed turning these guys down after the fact.
Well, it seemed like he enjoyed. He's going in for a sales position for a copy company, a company that sells copiers and printers, and it seems like he's enjoying selling himself to these guys. Because the interview went well, but they obviously weren't convinced yet, and they said it'd be a couple weeks. And he goes walking out, and then has that moment where he's like, "I'm going to go in there and sell this, really sell this," which he does. And they offer him a job on the spot, and then he turns it around. Makes them feel stupid for offering him a job, and it's like, wow, I don't know if he's just sharpening up his skills or
I could be a serial killer. I could be the guy who pees in your coffee. And you said right out loud, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, is
so
he just
weird.
sharpening his skills? Is this part of his self-destruction? Like, is he just trying to burn bridges around town? It'll be interesting to find out. Either way, it was a really compelling scene.
He has such a powerful personality that I think he's able to just... He gets some sort of weird, sick recharge out of it. You know, he was like, because right afterwards, he goes right to his car and says, "Oh, do you have this other thing? Well, I can be there in 20 minutes." But, and it was just this bizarre thing.
He probably did the same thing there. He probably convinced him to hire him on the spot and then just turned around and said, "Suckers."
I was getting geared up for kind of a short montage of him just going to a bunch more places and turning them down as he convinces them to keep him.
I'm glad they didn't do that, though. This show seems to subvert a lot of what you kind of expect in television shows, and that's kind of a breath of fresh air, you know.
I was particularly interested in seeing Lydia and Gus Fring hang out. There was a moment where she's like, "Can you hook up?" And he's like, "Is this a?" And then she's like, "I don't know what I'm."
Secure line,
and I'm just like, and she's just like, "I don't know how I could deal with this. Oh, this is such horrible stuff." And then right during that same time, who is it that pulls up to Gus? Is it Victor? Victor, and someone's pulling up as he's talking on the phone with Lydia.
Yeah, it's the guy. I forget the character's name, but it's the guy who had been at the hospital who gave him the information in his office.
Right. And
so I can't remember that.
And he's actually a doctor on the show. He's been on I think he's been on Breaking Bad, but anyway.
I can't remember. It has been a few years since I've seen Breaking Bad. In fact, I don't think I've watched any of it again since it ended in 2013. So some of the minor characters that are kind of popping back up, forgetting a little bit about. I do think it's really interesting how far they're going already into characters from Breaking Bad, even though they're still years away from that story. But if you think about it, it seems to me like Better Call Saul actually spans a longer time span than Breaking Bad, because even though it starts in 2002, there are still flashbacks to Slip and Jimmy being a con man prior to him trying to be an attorney. Remember that? And his best friend dies, and then it ends in the present, which would be... Doesn't
Slip and Jimmy take a pee in someone's car? Isn't that what he does?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So those are flashbacks from like the mid to late 90s. And then when the show flash forwards, it's going to be 2015 when the show started, because that's where we were with Jimmy, aka Saul, aka what was his Gene, working at the Cinnabon. So really, it spans like the total scope of the story spans like from the late '90s to 2015. So that's a pretty long jaunt. Even on Breaking Bad, we had some flashbacks into Gus's past, but it wasn't quite that far back.
So what year was it that Walter White ends up doing his thing? When does the pilot?
2008.
Okay.
2008 is when the show starts, and then when it ends, I believe it's probably like 2011 or 2012. It's probably within a year of when the show actually aired would be the time span.
Another great moment in this episode was Kim Wexler's rant to Howard.
Yeah.
That was so great. I mean, defending the hell out of him and just, he doesn't want any of this crap. He doesn't want any of this. I'm pretty darn sure.
Yeah.
And so you think that Chuck actually just only decided to give him $5,000, or did Chuck not want to give him anything? What actually happened there?
Like Kim said, that check for $5,000 was really, he could have gotten more.
But he would have to fight it.
Yeah, you would have to fight for it. So this was like an uncontested way of basically looking like you weren't forgotten in the will.
But do you think that? I mean, do you think that he was kind of? I mean, do you think Chuck would have just left him out of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that letter that he wrote to Chuck, which we have,
probably
which Chuck, his final letter that he wrote to Jimmy, which we haven't seen yet because Kim didn't give it to him. I wonder if and when he's ever going to get this letter and what it's really going to say.
It'll be interesting to find out what it actually says.
Even though Kim doesn't believe, Kim believes that Howard's confession that he believes he drove Chuck to commit suicide and that Chuck did indeed commit suicide. Kim doesn't believe that. She thinks it was an accident and Howard's just feeling guilty. We, the audience, know it's not an accident because Chuck was kicking
that's right,
to get that thing to fall over. So he had planned this very, very carefully. And that's why I believe that when Jimmy thought that he was the guy, even though Jimmy hasn't come out and said he knows it's suicide, he did point out that Howard had thrown all the electronic stuff in the back and then things just weren't in the backyard and things just weren't normal. I'm pretty sure that Jimmy came to his own conclusion, right? And that's why he was feeling guilty, thinking it's something that he did. As soon as Howard took the blame, it's like, okay, he's dead. I don't care, but I didn't cause it, so I'm good.
Right.
So I wonder what's going to happen when he reads that note, because that note will probably. I'm just gonna call it right now. I'll probably be wrong and have to eat my words. But,
what do you think?
But I eat a lot anyway, so that's not a problem. But I think that letter is basically Chuck blaming Jimmy for why he's doing what he's doing and why he feels like he's got no reason to live. I think it's definitely going to be something that's going to be. Chuck had a lot of resentment. They had a lot of resentment for each other. Slip and Jimmy got away with just flying by the seat of his pants and doing whatever he wanted, and he was his mom's favorite. Chuck was by the books, did everything that was expected, and didn't get any. Felt that he didn't get any love or respect from his mom and his little brother. Even though his little brother took care of him when he was sick, and just weird family dynamics, man. We all have them. We all have our family dramas.
Speaking of family, the you were pointing out how funny it was that the Salamanca cartel guys in the hospital there. You're just pointing out how funny it was that they were just like, you're like, dial it down a little bit because
like they were so in total mafia mode the whole time. They've got their shiny mafia suits with their boots and their shaved heads, and like they have no expression, no sympathy, no concerns, even to the doctor. Who is just like the male doctor who's just like, I gotta get out of here, and then the
he
specialist
was
from John Hopkins, how even she is just kind of like you notice when she was explaining what they were gonna do to try and stimulate Don Hector's mind. She was just like, do you understand? Good. She didn't even wait for them to respond because.
Because she knew, and she totally knew what it was all about. She was just, she kind of just jumped on the ship and.
But it was just, I was just thinking, in the real world, like, you might want to not draw that kind of suspicion to yourself. Like, wear some normal clothes, just kind of be a little bit more personable, or at least play the, they could have easily done like the whole we don't speak English thing, played that up, but like, yeah, totally gangster the entire time. And
but I think that's part. It's resolute in their character. It's something
Sure.
that they've always been very.
Stood out to me. I'm just thinking, whoa, I wouldn't walk into that room. Those guys look like they're gonna beat somebody up. Like,
well, I can't help but be reminded of that scene in Breaking Bad when it's like they're all crawling to the shrine. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. They're all crawling like doing the alligator or whatever you want to crawling to the shrine. Anyway, but I can't help but think of that, and of course the epic scene in the parking lot with Hank. Mm-hmm. You can't help but think of those scenes. So speculation, things to be quickly taking away from this episode. Biggest thing I can see is that what was that weird toy that Jimmy was looking at online. He was looking at some
like a
not a toy but a
porcelain
doll. Right.
Porcelain doll.
So what was the deal with that? What do you think about that?
$700.
Maybe an investment of some kind that he was maybe.
If you're watching, you might. If this is something that's a reference to a previous episode, I don't recall it. So you could please fill in the blanks with the comments. I don't know if this was something that was a reference to a previous episode because it didn't seem familiar. Right. So I'm not sure why he was looking at that. And you know how this show is too. Like they could hint at things that from the past that you're supposed to recognize,
right?
But then also things that are going to happen that we're just not we're not sure of yet. So I don't necessarily know if he was buying that as a gift for Kim, or is that?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, part of me thinks that it's going to be like like one of the things that you see in his
in
his office. Okay,
was it in his office?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Anyway, that's a bizarre thing. If anybody has any insight on that, please drop it in the comments below. Just trying to think of anything else before we close up here. Anything else that took away? Of course, I mean, I can see some shakiness going on with. And you said specifically how you said Kim is great for Jimmy, but he's just gonna mess it up.
I mean, I don't think that's a spoiler. I think if you've been watching the show, you've been seeing that their relationship is growing. It had already kind of started and fallen apart by the first two seasons, and it's just growing. And Howard's death and their current living situation, everything, it's just bringing them even closer together. But that. Once he becomes Saul, or maybe that's one of the instrumental things in him becoming Saul, but their relationship is going to take a dump. You just know it because, Kim's not in or even mentioned in Breaking Bad. Yeah. So,
and it's going to be tragic. Whatever happens with them, it's going to be a sad episode. That is going to be a total tragedy.
But if you notice, I think two things are happening in this show, and I think that's key to the show, is that we're watching Jimmy give up every reason to be Jimmy. He's lost his best friend. He's lost his brother. He's lost his mother. He's been disbarred. He's pretty much been kicked out of the two major law offices in Albuquerque. He's going to lose his relationship with Kim. But it's also his relationship to Mike, and through Mike, and Nacho, through Tuco, and all the way down to Gus and Hector and stuff. It's pulling him into the world of Breaking Bad. So it's
I think something is going to remind him of season one, because in season one he's holding on to all this cash. Do you remember? And he's like, I can't look at all this. It's season one of Better Call Saul. He's saying he has a bundle of cash and he's sitting on it, just going, "What am I?"
Didn't he use that in the third season to build his law office with Kim?
Oh, okay. I forgot about that. Oh, okay.
I can't remember. I think he did. I could be wrong.
The point is that it was criminal dollars. This was this was money that was earned illegally, and he was all about it. He was like, well, why should I be doing this? Why should I be slaving to the grind all day long, dealing with this crap, being treated like dog crap, and then end up in this. So anyway, I think he's going to be reminded of at least that, or something's going to trigger him back into that kind of mindset where it's like, why
well,
bust
that's what
my
I'm
ass?
saying. Like,
right.
when he's losing everything and he's losing all the people around him that care about him, and he's pretty much burning bridges as far as his career is going, and why he has to invent a new personality and go by a different name. I think those are the reasons. So he really like, I imagine he once all of that's gone, that's the main contributing factor to being Saul Goodman, is he's going to realize that he does have this talent for conning people and telling what they want to hear and manipulating them and things, and getting them to do what he wants. And that's only going to strengthen his ties to the criminal underside, where he's eventually going to become the criminal attorney that we know and love. So
a criminal lawyer.
Yeah. So it's going to be. This is an exciting show. It's really kind of a breath of fresh air, because there are a lot of non-science fiction and non-superhero, non-fantasy, supernatural type shows out there. Unfortunately, that seems to be what I'm mostly interested in. So when a show can come along that has none of those qualities and is captivating, like, I can watch a crime drama film, I can watch a police procedural film or a courtroom drama as a film. I can't do it as a television series. I get bored. But shows like this and Breaking Bad, for some reason, just, they're so creative, so well written, well acted, well shot, that they drag me in. So kudos. I can't wait to see next Monday's episode.
And have a splendid evening. Thanks again for hanging out with us.